money to the charity rather than to watch their team.
Oh,
We're talking.
sorry about that.
This is one that Brian might have a little bit of an input in. Now, Everton goalkeeper Jordan Pickford will not face retrospective action over his challenge on Liverpool centre-half Virgil van Dijk in Saturday's Merseyside derby. The FA determined the incident was seen at the time, having consulted with the match officials and VAR. The defender suffered cruciate ligament damage, which is likely to sideline him for at least 6 months and maybe more. If that had a centre half on a centre forward, I think it would have been an immediate red. Now, what's your view on it, Brian, from the referee, your referee perspective?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, what really confused everything was the fact that immediately prior to that, it was actually offside. Right? But in law, that shouldn't make any difference, because the act of what I would call violent conduct was still undertaken, even though essentially the ball was out of play. Right? In defence of referee, what I would say is he had a slightly but significantly different angle to what we saw on the TV, and I know from my own experience that what you see on TV and what you see on the pitch is a totally different game. but for me, that was a classic example of all the reasons why they were clamouring for VAR to be brought in to resolve those issues, and for some reason between them they didn't get to what should have been the right decision. And I think it comes down to what I've said before, that now that there's a grey area between applying the laws of the game and how the guys who referee at that level describe it as managing the event. And I think once you start getting into that situation, then every so often you're going to have decisions like we had at the weekend, and I think clearly it should have gone. I mean, what Pickford did was what goalkeepers do these days. They come out, they spread themselves, they quite often lead feet first, but on this occasion all the elements came into one tackle, and it was horrendous. But I was surprised that with VAR they didn't come to the decision that ought to have been made, in my view, and it should have been a red card.
Yeah.
But once they made that decision, it is the rule, if you like, that if the referee on the day has seen it, then you can't take retrospective action. So, it's seen it, made the wrong decision in most people's eyes. You've just got to live with it, and I'm pretty sure, contrary to what most of the Northwest thinks, the world didn't combine to gang up on Liverpool, and it was only because it was Liverpool that decision was made, because that seems to be the feeling up there, as always. But they just got the wrong decision, I think. But obviously at the time they thought they made the right decision, but for me, a horrendously bad decision.
The wrong decision, Brian.
I can see it getting some insults when he walks around Liverpool.
The referee said that the wrong decision was nothing to do about the incident. The wrong decision is, unlike every other sport, VAR has taken the decision off the referee on the field.
Yeah.
You watch Nigel Owen in rugby union, and he's reminded to look at an instance, or he's requested to look at an instance. You hear and see him making his decision as the primary official on the field. And that's where football has got it wrong. Between pillar and post, they don't know who's running the game. And it should be the referee on the pitch. All VAR needed to do on that day was say, you've missed something. Have a look. Make your decision. That's the end of it.
And I agree with that, Ian. But what we don't know is what conversation took place between VAR and the referee, right? So we don't know what conversation they had. But I don't know if Keith was at the referees meeting where we had, I think it was Dave Coote and VAR, and he went into VAR in a very deep fashion, and we actually had VAR on the screen from one match where we could actually hear the commentary, right? And if that commentary had been on TV, then the guy on VAR would never have refereed again because his language was disgusting. But that's just the way they talk, and obviously
I agree with you. I agree with you, Brian. But my point is, which I made badly, is there's no transparency in rugby union and in rugby league and in cricket.
Yeah.
You hear them say, "That's a fair delivery," and so you can stick with your decision.
Yeah.
In other words, passing it back to the umpire. In rugby union, Nigel Owens, what I'm seeing is so and so, so and so, so and so. So it's not a red card, it's not a yellow card, it's just a penalty, right?
What about Islamabad is he from?
It's
Chinese.
It's part of the game, and it's transparent. But what you see is covert, and it's, as Chris would say, it's all to do with that.
Well, I think you got to be careful there in the sense that obviously decisions being made that conversation's not going to be made public, right? And you might argue, well, why not? What's the problem? And I think part of the problem is that football having a slightly different nature, I think, of people who watch it from the other sports. I think that conversation itself might create more controversy than the decision itself, because there'll be people clinging on to every word. It'd be like these presenters who say, the Prime Minister's made this statement and he said this, when in actual fact he's actually said something totally the opposite. So I think there's a danger within the sort of football community that publicises these sort of things. The controversy will then centre around what's been said rather than what's happened. That's a decision for FIFA. But yeah, for me, right, you've got somebody on the field who's got the pace of the game, the feeling of the game, how frantic the game might be, and then you've got somebody in Stockley Park who sat in an armchair surrounded by 3 or 4 other people, because there's more than one, because there's it could actually, they tell us who the VAR guy is, but it could actually be his assistant, because he has an assistant in the VAR, because if he's got to go to Lou for whatever reason, somebody's got to step into that seat.
It must have been Tony Bello.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is that the guy in the VAR room can't get the temperature of the game, and I think possibly that's where it's lost.
Which is where I agree totally with you, Brian. They should be assisting the referee just as much as an assistant referee on the line is assisting the ref. The referee is the arbiter of the game. You can get it right, you can get it wrong, but it's his call.
Absolutely, and I think where VAR comes in on points of absolute fact, like the offside, people might not like it, like I don't like it, but if he's a millimetre offside, he's offside. That's what they say, and if you say a millimetre's too close, then if you say, well, okay, let's go to 5 millimeters.
Toenails.
Well, yeah, but then if you go to 5 millimeters, if somebody's then 4 millimeters offside, you have the same argument. So it has to be yes or no. But where it comes down to an opinion, and we have the referee's opinion then we have an opinion from Stockley Park. If it's a judgment based on opinion, I think in every case you should go to the referee and say, have a look.
You see, and the Henderson goal, using cricket as my analogy, in cricket, does it hit the stumps, doesn't it? It's called umpire's call.
Yeah.
Now, the Henderson goal should have been the referee's call. It's marginal. You might want to review it, but it's your call. And his original call, his field decision was goal. And, you know, that's where I'm biased because of Liverpool, obviously. But I think that's where football has got it horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas cricket and rugby league and union have got it right. They let the guy who's paid to make the decision and assist him rather the other way around.
But in terms of offside, Ian, it's not necessarily the referee's call or the assistant's call, because I think what we've moved to at that level is similar to cricket. The best way I can describe it is cricket with the run-outs.
Yeah.
What will happen is the umpire, or in this case the assistant referee, won't make a decision because they can rely on the technology.
Yeah.
And now what's happening with the assistants is they're told, if it's close, if you're not absolutely certain, let the game run and see what happens. So if that Liverpool attack had ended up with the shot or the header going wide and it going out for a goal kick, they would have carried on with a goal kick and nobody would have said anything.
Yeah.
But so we're now in a position where the assistants, I'm not sure, I'll let it run. If the ball ends up in the back of the net, then I'll say over my speakers, ref, I think we need to look at that offside. Yeah. And so it's allowing the assistants, if you like, a bit of a cop out on that decision. I mean, eventually assistant referees will disappear. I'll tell you, they'll disappear.
Yeah. From my point of view, I think the offside is like the no ball in cricket. His foot's either over the line or whatever it is in cricket.
Yeah.
He's either offside or isn't. Sometimes they are that close that I don't see how they, like the Liverpool one, I don't think you could tell. It was so small. I don't know how they could tell. But going back to the Jordan Pickford incident, I think personally that the FA have brought themselves into disrepute by not taking retrospective action. Because for a tackle that was totally out of control, that's put a player out for 6 to 9 months, and they're saying that's not worthy of retrospective action.
I don't think they're saying that.
As Brian said, the rules say they can't do that if the referee's seen it.
No, they can't.
The referee didn't see it
because
though.
It was bad.
The referee can't have seen it, otherwise he'd have made the right decision. It's VAR that's at fault. VAR got it wrong. It was clearly a sending off.
They're saying that they've consulted with the match officials and they saw the incident and chose.
Well, if he saw it, he should be sacked then.
Well,
because if he saw that, he should have made the right decision.
He's incompetent.
Exactly.
Anybody who's ever played the game who would say
that's a different argument.
Would say that that's a red card offence. Anybody who's ever played the game, that's a red card offence.
You're right, Paul.
But on top of that,
referees after them.
They can make retrospective. They can take retrospective action when it's so serious, and that I don't see. I think that they've done football a disservice by not taking retrospective action, because they've now that's
a precedent.
It's to anybody doing anything. Well, we will probably get away.
I thought they could only take I thought they could only take retrospective action if the referee's seen it and it was a case of mistaken identity.
No,
Brian will know better than me, but I thought that was if the referee's seen it.
Yes, if the referee says he's seen the incident and he sent number 9 off, and it turns out to be number 6, then they can take action. But it comes back to what Ian's been saying about VAR. It's like jumped out of one court into the other as it suits. Because on this occasion, they're saying it was the referee's decision. He saw it at the time. He took that course of action, and that's it. The matter's dealt with. As soon as we restart play, the matter's dealt with because the referee's seen it. The fact that 99% of the country, everybody except Evertonians, disagrees with the decision is irrelevant because the referee's seen it, and at that time he chose that course of action. If the referee had said, "I didn't see it, I wasn't advised as to the incident by either of my assistants or the fourth official," then the FA would probably have taken action. But because the officials, somewhere in the conversation that they've had, and they say that they have had this conversation with the officials, somewhere in that conversation, the referee would have said, "Yes, I was made aware of it, or I saw it, or whatever, and at that time I didn't feel it warranted any action," then the FA are stuck because that is.
I totally endorse that. If the referee, in all honesty, says he saw the incident, he will have had a perception of the incident, is my interpretation. He didn't see the incident, but he saw something and he made a judgment. That is rule 1. It was his judgment. It's on the responsibility of the body to say, "I'm sorry, mate, on this occasion, you got that judgment wrong." And as a very expensive young player who's out for 7 months plus and not too sure if he'll recover for it, that was a violent action. And in the name of the game, and I don't mean Liverpool against Everton, I mean in the game of football, we have to set and preserve our standards. You got that decision wrong, we'll push that to one side. But we as the authoritative body are taking retrospective action on that incident, which was not willful, but reckless.
And that's okay, Ian. That's okay. But it's the Football Association's rules that will apply, and B, there have been other instances, many other instances in days gone by, and probably this season as well, where similar things have happened, and the FA have been unable to take retrospective action, and it then comes back to someone else's opinion as to, well, that was serious enough to take retrospective action, and you have to then go down all the variables, and at what point do you then say, well, that wasn't serious enough to take retrospective action, and who's right and who's wrong?
Well, I take a very black and white view, as you can probably gather. I agree with 99% of what you're saying, Brian, and thanks for coming back with your view, because it's helpful to understand what goes on. But in my view, the man on the field, the referee, is the ultimate arbiter. After the game, if something has gone wrong, it's down to the authoritative body to put it right or to make a judgment on it. Now, I think what you're saying, Brian, is they've made that judgment. The mere fact that some of us don't agree with it is neither here nor there, but they've made a judgment, and I accept that.
I think you'll find.
Dave
hang on. Colin.
Dave Redford's had his hand up for ages.
Yeah, I agree with what they're saying, but you're talking about them going back to retrospective action. Why then didn't they go for retrospection action when Sheffield United scored a goal against Aston Villa?
Well,
for God's sake.
You can go back. There's loads of incidents where they could have taken retrospective action.
It's where do you start and where do you stop? But it's essentially the FA have followed their own rules. If the FA had taken retrospective action on that, having said all that they've said, you know, about the match officials being aware of it, and they've made that decision. If they'd have taken retrospective action, I'll tell you now, Everton would have been in court today with the FA saying the FA haven't followed their rules. The Jordan Pickford 3-game ban you've given him needs overturning, and they would have probably lost. Everton would
Okay,
have had him
hang
back.
on. Right. Dave Redfern.
What
Oh,
what would the referee think about it after, when he did see the incident on VAR?
I'd probably think, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's what he probably thinks.
Could they bring him to give his verdict?
Well, not really. It's a bit like when I referee, or if Keith refereed and he saw his matches on video. You think, bloody hell, that didn't happen. That didn't.
I'd like to see some of them.
Yeah, that didn't happen on game I refereed. It didn't, and I think when I came and first met you, I told you about this throwing I gave when George Courtney were refereeing at Nottingham Forest. I gave this throwing. The ball went out. It hit this guy and went out, and I gave this throwing to the opponents, and everybody, the whole crowd behind me started laughing, and George Courtney, referee, just smiled sweetly, pointed the other way, and I thought, well, it's up to you, George. You're the boss. If you want to get it wrong, you get it wrong. That's fine. That's how I always thought. I got the video after the match, and this ball that hit this player and went out were 5 yards away from this player, and I only got away with it because the decision was so bad. People thought it were funny. They couldn't believe that I was making a genuinely bad decision. They must have just thought I'd had an aberration and I went the wrong way. It was that bad. But I'm telling you, put a gun against my head and I would have said that ball hit that guy.
okay. Right, Paul the Biscuit.
I forgot what I was going to say now.
All right.
No, go back to the point that I made last week about we have a problem because we have more than one governing body in this country. We've got the referees of the Premier League who are now passing the buck to the FA, and it's now the FA's decision about something that happened in a league game. This problem will go on forever, while ever we've got 3 governing bodies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a stuck record, I'm sorry, but it's just
Yeah.
never going to get better.
Brian, a supplementary question. In rugby union, one team can cite the player over another for dangerous play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not dealt with on the pitch. It's dealt with in I suppose you'd call it a tribunal afterwards.
Yeah.
Is there a similar rule in football?
Yeah.
If it's not seen by the referee.
Only if the referee's not seen it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you see, in rugby union, the referee may have missed it, and you can still actually bring an action for, because you can imagine there's dangerous play and there's
Right.
legal play.
Okay. I think we've done this to death.
Till next week.
Enjoying it.
Till the next incident.
Enjoying it.
I know. I must admit, I find it interesting, but I don't think that we've other fish to fry this week. So
that's no way to split it, Dave.
Oh, but those 2 decisions against Liverpool were one of the many reasons why I'm going off modern football.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's depressing, it's demoralising. They're so wrong, it's not true. Yes, technically the offside was right, or was it? 1 millimetre. Morally, and in the spirit of the game, it's not right. And I'm going right off football this season.
Bring the old-fashioned game back.
They're giving penalties, ridiculous penalties.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
We've had enough of this, Keith. Get on with it.
Yeah. I'm going to
You're going on and on and on.
with United's penalty on Sunday.
Oh, get away with it.
In my opinion, that was never a penalty.
No.
It was just two players who were going for the same high ball.
Yeah, that's right.
One was a
Yeah.
split second.
dead
behind the
right.
other.
I couldn't
Dead
see a
right,
penalty
Keane.
in that at all.
It
And
was-
Wednesday's penalty was dodgy as well.
Yeah.
Did Lol
Both
ever finish?
penalties were
Did
dodgy.
Lol ever finish?
No, I've gone for a lie down.
No,
Oh.
we've got some news, haven't we? All?
Have you got any more news,
You
Lol?
see, he starts these things and then he goes for a cuppa.
Lol, have you got any more news?
Three lads, just go on then. Locally, a good win for the Owls, 1-0 at Birmingham. And at last,
With the
VAR
disputed
came to
penalty.
the Blades rescue
Dodgy
to open up
penalty.
a penalty late on in the game, which Billy Sharp dispatched with a plum. To
That
draw
was a
the
way
winner.
to take a penalty.
With a plum?
With a plum, yeah. Good club, that.
All right.
The worrying
okay.
thing.
Except if the goalkeeper had have stood still, it'd have been on the nose.
Yeah.
I'll hand back to
Right.
Keith, who might get a new newsreader.
No, right. We're going to go back to Big Paul.
Hey,
Big
thanks,
ball,
Lol.
big
Applaud
ball.
him Lol for his marathon effort.
Yeah. Longest news ever.
Paul, Big Paul, do you want to tell us a bit more about someone that you mentioned last week, or do you want us to go on to something else?
Well, I can do if you want. Can do if you want.
Yes, please.
We talked about Harvey Smith. We talked about Harvey Smith. I think we'd finished Joe Lewis.
Yeah, did
Yeah.
Joe Lewis first? I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. What, as I say, what I thought made Harvey Smith stand out was in the ring, actually, in the show jumping ring. He was like the first. They'd walk the course and look at the fences they got to jump, and he was the first that I can recall that would suddenly turn inside a fence where others hadn't, and save a second or two, like, and thereby win jump offs and things like that. He had that foresight to see things that others didn't seem to do. As I say, the others I've mentioned were all world record holders, world champions and things like that. And I haven't picked those because of that reason. Harvey Smith doesn't fit into that category. The only thing to Olympic wise was a bronze medal in the team show jumping. So the athletes I've mentioned and things like that,
Okay.
You're
they
up.
were prolific winners. Harvey Smith was a prolific domestic winner and internationally as well, but he was never world champion or anything like that.
I totally agree with you, Paul. When he jumped to the Liverpool show at Wavertree several years, David Broom and all the other big names there, he was the one that did something. He sort of introduced the Fosbury flop of show jumping. He changed technique. He extended the boundaries. And it was his character that did it more than anything. Whether he was... I often wondered whether he was a bit rough with the horses, because he turned them through very tight turning circles and what have you. But to gain that extra second, I think he was amazing, chap. It really was.
Well, there has been occasions when he's been accused of being cruel to the horses.
Yeah.
There was one occasion where televised, where after finishing his round, I don't know the clear round or whatever, and I don't even know which horse it was, where somebody alleged that as he's riding out of the main show ring into the collecting ring through the tunnel there, that he set about with his whip, actually beating the horse something terrible. And when they looked at it, the television, he hadn't got a whip on him at all.
Exactly. In any case, you can see you can see them in the collecting rings and what have you. Doesn't happen. What is, as you well know, what can damage a horse is the bit in the mouth. If you're pulling hard to get that tight circle, turning shape, particularly as you're going inside that can damage the mouth and what have you. that I remember my first lessons being taught that was cruel to a horse to do that. I think that's where he got his reputation for being a bit cruel. I don't think he was. I think he just used everything within his power to get an extra second. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
I just think he was just a damn good
And if
horse.
all else failed, he just shoved 2 fingers up to him.
Absolutely. And that's the bit I liked.
Brian, talking of which, Brian, I did mention I've got a poem. Do you want, shall I read it now?
Yes, please.
About to do with that, actually.
What, 2 fingers or Harvey?
Both.
It's
Not a poem about Brian.
It's actually called The Ballad of Matty Brown. For those that don't know, Matty Brown was the horse that Harvey Smith had won the Ixted Derby, show jumping derby, on the year before.
Yeah.
And if we've time sometime, I can explain why this conflict between Douglas Bunn and Harvey Smith arose. But anyway, I'll read the poem out. The Ballad of Matty Brown. The crowd had gathered at Ixted. 'Twas the summer of '71. Some hoping to see Harvey successful, some doubting, especially one. Matty Brown won't make it this time, the sage was heard to proclaim. It's goodbye to his Derby trophy, he's off home, and worse still, he's lame. Red Rack to the Bull wasn't in it when Harvey heard what he'd to say, and he swore to himself they would triumph when it came to the main jumping day. Matty came from his box in the morning in a way which said all was well. Harvey knew then they would win it. The critics could all go to hell. So he went through to the jump-off with only Old Prospero to beat. 3 fences fell for poor Hadley. For Matty there was no defeat. That showed them, thought Harvey with relish, they've not got the better of me. And just to make sure that they knew it, he put his hand up in a V.
Right, okay, chaps, we've got 3 minutes left. Ron, have you got your pink and ready?
I have, yes.
Right, if you'll pardon the expression.
We won't get through all the questions, but right. In what year did the first Great North Run take place?
Was it 81? 81?
Yeah, 1981.
Good answer.
Which footballer Graham Lasso was born in which group of islands? Yeah. In which sport did Irina Rodnina win 24 World, Olympic and European gold medals?
Ice skating.
Yeah, ice skating.
Yeah.
Good answer. No?
Right. I'll pick a couple of unusual ones. Who is the odd one out? Agassi, Becker, Borg, Cash, Edberg, Krycek, McEnroe, Sampras and Stych.
Krycek.
One of them's
No.
McEnroe,
but why?
left-handed.
He was left-handed, yeah.
Well done.
Right, Ron, sorry, can I stop you there? Because I just need to mention about next week. Next week,
Yeah.
we've got a lady called Kath Woodward coming on. And if you recognise the surname, that's because at one time she was married to Alan Woodward.
Oh.
So they did get divorced later on, but she's going to come on and tell us about, she used to work for United as John Harris's secretary. So she's going to come on and tell us about her time at Bramall Lane and with Alan. She actually went to America with him when he left United and moved to America. So she's going to come on for the second half of next week's meeting. Well, she might be on for the first half as well, but she's going to come on. So next week, we're going to devote the second half to Kath. If every
Right.
Great stuff.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, very good.
So if you've got 1 or 2 questions, you know, get them ready. So Kath's
That's gonna rush LOL though, isn't it?
LOL's